welcome to the Pearl Report. I'm Diana Lin. Since Hong Kong's public smoking ban became effective in places such as bars and nightclubs in 2009, tobacco control issues have been few. That's changing. The government wants to ban outright e-cigarettes. As producer Chris Lincoln reports, the move is contentious because many people believe e-cigarettes are less harmful than tobacco.
I'm just trying to make a more consistent effort to quit smoking altogether and quit nicotine altogether.
Jamie is a new father and now in his mid-30s.
It's time to reprioritize and take a bit more care of myself and in turn my family. I got an e-cigarette while I was in the UK. It seemed like a good idea while it was all there, and it's easy to get hold of.
He's brought his e-cigarette to show us, and he's getting the very last out of the liquid nicotine that he bought while abroad.
I bought a couple of refill packets for the cartridges, but obviously after a while they ran out.
These are e-cigarettes found in Hong Kong without nicotine. E-cigarettes with nicotine liquid, or e-liquid, are legal here only if they're registered under the Pharmacy and Poisons Ordinance, and so far, no one has tried to register any.
Because you can't get the nicotine refills and the nicotine e-cigarettes here in Hong Kong, the alternative ends up being that rather than just taking your e-cigarette out, you end up going out and buying a pack of cigarettes. I firmly believe that if I still had the opportunity to buy nicotine cartridges or nicotine-based e-cigarettes, yeah, the chances of me actually quitting regular cigarettes, full stop, would have been immeasurably higher.
Should we embrace e-cigarettes in Hong Kong? You will hear a yes from people who represent the e-cigarette business, which traditional tobacco has been buying into.
Tobacco, conventional tobacco, is here to stay. Therefore, it is absolutely unethical to not allow individuals that are currently tobacco users a pathway to a less harmful alternative called the e-cigarette.
You will get a qualified yes from many people who have been fighting for years to control the damage done by tobacco.
If the whole world converted to e-cigarettes tomorrow, then we would undoubtedly save a lot of lives.
And from the Hong Kong government, the answer is no to e-cigarettes. Amendments to legislation are expected this autumn to prohibit their import, manufacture, distribution, sale, and advertising.
The ingredients of inside e-cigarettes is harmful. It's already shown in some of the studies and also from the World Health Organization report. So I think it is important for us to protect, in particular, our young people, because it can easily be served as a gateway to smoking.
They're not just water vapor as indicated by...
Formaldehyde, for example.
We do not know about all the ingredients of e-cigarettes, but some of the known ingredients include nicotine, right? Includes propylene glycol, glycerol, and flavorings and additives and heavy metal.
And in less than 10 years, this product has now literally globalized. It is now in almost all countries of the world.
The WHO report came out last year. The Hong Kong Council on Smoking and Health came out in March to say government should ban e-cigarettes completely. By next May, all of the European Union's 28 member states are to regulate the use of e-cigarettes. Manufacturers will be required to list all ingredients and toxicological data. Across the EU, regulation might not be the same. Some 2.5 million people use e-cigarettes in the UK, where they are not covered by tobacco legislation. By 2016, to be sold legally, the product will need to be licensed as a medicine. In France, the government has suggested a ban on e-cigarettes in public places. In the US, there's no federal law on e-cigarettes. Individual states make their own regulations.
The regulation of e-cigarettes around the world is just in complete chaos. There's some countries where they're allowed completely, there are some countries where they're banned completely, and in the middle you've got countries, for example, where it's only sold on prescription, or it's only sold under very tight regulations.
Judith Mackay advises governments on tobacco policy.
I think e-cigarettes are a really quite difficult question, If you look at what we know about their chemicals compared to a cigarette that you smoke, then they are probably about 5% of the harm.
If there are obvious health gains to be achieved by switching from tobacco to vaporizing a nicotine-based liquid, there remain unanswered questions.
We don't know even what the chemicals are in, many of them, the chemicals and the flavors, because they're not forcibly disclosed. We don't know the social science. We still do not know whether they encourage children to smoke, do they help smokers quit, do smokers start using both? WHO, the CDC and the USA, countries, the national governments are all now including e-cigarettes in their studies, but we will not know for another 5 years as to what the effect of e-cigarettes are. And the difficulty is that governments have got to legislate long before 5 years.
In Asia, we can see, like, for example, like in Thailand, e-cigarettes have been banned from last year, and Singapore, e-cigarettes have been banned from 2010.
Here, e-cigarettes don't yet amount to much. Koch says 1.8% of the Hong Kong population has tried an e-cigarette.
Based on global sales figures and the use rates of teenagers in other countries, now we have reasonable grounds to believe that this rate will increase unless we do something about it quite quickly.
There's pressure. Industry lobbyists were here in July when deputations appeared in LegCo to speak about proposed changes to tobacco laws.
The e-cigarette has shown to be the absolute only reason for the largest decrease in conventional tobacco use in the United States today. And we're seeing these exact same numbers in Europe.
One day, when there is enough evidence to show that e-cigarettes can help in smoking cessation, we can certainly look into the matter again and also consider regulating e-cigarette as a pharmaceutical product.
I do understand that they don't know exactly what is in nicotine juice at this moment, or that they're concerned that there isn't any regulation on it. But they also know that cigarettes kill.
Dave has tried to stop smoking by using the nicotine patch, a hypnosis book, and just cold turkey. 7 years ago, he started experimenting with e-cigarettes that he purchased abroad and brought back to Hong Kong. He couldn't keep a supply, though, of nicotine liquid for his reusable e-cigarette.
That supplier said, I can't send that to Hong Kong anymore. I have some non-nicotine e-cigarettes. They're disposables, and they're very convenient to use. But not having nicotine makes them kind of useless as a cigarette.
Dave continues to smoke tobacco and hopes Hong Kong permits e-cigarettes soon.
One thing that it is not is harsh on the lungs as you inhale it. And you can use it indoors without causing any discomfort or smell for anybody else.
There is a fine for using an e-cigarette indoors in Hong Kong where tobacco is banned.
Even if there's no nicotine?
Yes, even if it's no nicotine.
Nicotine-free e-cigarettes are now legal, but will end up banned under an amended law.
If you're worried about something, regulate it. Don't just ban it. That'd be the easy way out.
Nav Lalji spoke at LegCo in July, trying to save the Hong Kong part of his e-cigarette business.
Yes, there are a lot of long-term effects we still don't know yet, but let's try to improve the technology instead of just trying to ban it. Give people who are smoking or who want to come off smoking a chance to finally try it and see if it works.
His company makes nicotine-free e-cigarettes. They're called shisha sticks, marketed to suggest smoking shisha, which the company also sells.
The flavors we actually have were consciously chosen simply because Hong Kong doesn't allow nicotine. If it did, we probably would have, well, let's say tobacco or pipe.
The flavors are fruity and trendy.
Who here doesn't like a good strawberry mojito or whatever flavor there may be? They're marketed to adult vapors, adult smokers.
Women more than men?
not by design, but by default, because of the flavors and the colors, yes, women tend to pick up more of our products than men do sometimes.
Jeff Choi sells these in his shop, where he says customers are usually looking for novelty items.
I'm the first one to find this. And then they'll show off in front of their friends. You'll never see them coming back to get more. Once they get that kick out of showing off, and like, oh, that's it. I don't think we have any repeat customers. So yeah, too bad for the company that owns it.
When we come back,
we believe at this stage, there's no evidence that an increased graphic health warning will actually work.
Cigarette makers fight bigger warnings on packages.
Welcome back to the Per Report. Cigarette packages feature big health warnings. The government wants them even bigger still.
Smoking can be lethal.
In the early 1980s, Hong Kong started rolling out measures to curb smoking. Bans on smoking in all sorts of public places. Bans on tobacco advertising. Higher taxes on cigarettes. And as of 2012, it was 10.7%. Now, a new round of measures. Besides banning e-cigarettes, with legislative approval, smoking at bus interchanges near tunnels will be outlawed.
Recently, we have received a number of complaints from these bus stops, in particular those, they are usually big and the number of people there are a lot. We do hear there are also comments about why not regulate all the bus stops. This is something the Department of Health would be thinking. But as you know, there are many, many bus stops in Hong Kong. It is more complex than we think. Therefore, in terms of the enforcement.
The third tobacco control measure is contentious. Bigger graphic health warnings. They are to be expanded from 50 to 85% of the two main surfaces of the cigarette package. Plus, there'll be a phone number for quitting put on the package. Hong Kong would join Thailand at 85%. India will increase its warning to 85% next spring. Nepal is at 90%. Australia has 100% coverage, called plain packaging, which the UK and Ireland have slated for 2016.
Hong Kong already has a very low smoking rate, and the government is already doing so much public education. Hong Kong people, smokers or not, already know that smoking is not healthy. Hong Kong people already have enough knowledge. Why should we expand the health warning?
If you want to use it as a reminder to raise the awareness of smokers and also provide as an education for non-smokers, the bigger it is, the more effective it is.
Not so, says the tobacco industry.
Here is a pack from Canada. As you can see, a larger graphic health warning at 75%. And this is a pack from the US, which shows a text warning on the side panel. The smoking rate in Canada, 16.1%. The US, 14.2%. Now, if health warnings were as effective as the FHB insists, then the US would be higher than in Canada.
Tobacco control advocates say that's an oversimplification that disregards the other things governments do to get people to quit smoking.
It's the kind of thing, I have to say, I would expect from the tobacco industry, of pulling out statistics and completely ignoring taxation, health education, of other legislation, and they ignore all of those other variables that proper scientists take into account.
Kevin Choi is a Hong Kong-raised economist who spent 10 years teaching at Clemson University in South Carolina, tobacco country. He produced a report for industry group the Coalition on Tobacco Affairs, looking at how Hong Kong's smoking prevalence changed after tobacco warnings were placed on packages. The first warnings were words on packages in 1982.
When I make that kind of before and after comparison a few times when they expand it, there's just nothing.
No downward trend, he says, after 1994 when warnings grew to 20%, or after 2000 when warnings of 25 to 30% were put in place.
There's an underlying trend, okay? But then whenever they introduce a new measure to increase the size of the warning label,
like here for graphic warnings in 2007,
it just didn't do anything to change the trend.
the industry wants the Hong Kong government to show ahead of time through a study that expanded warnings will be effective.
You think the onus is on government to show ahead of time exactly what? That X number of people will not begin to smoke, or X number of people will stop smoking because of the graphic health warning?
At this stage, we just urge the government to have evidence-based regulation in place. And at this stage, without a proper study, there's no evidence of such a graphic health warning impact.
It's a delaying tactic.
In Hong Kong, there have been no studies on the effectiveness of warnings on cigarette packages.
A lot of research has been done in Australia because they have pioneered the plain package, which effectively is like an 85% warning. And they have certainly found that with smokers, they notice the warnings, it increases their intention to quit. Again, it's early days, it's only been a couple of years since this was in place.
There are also studies from other countries that show that smokers did say after seeing these warning labels, they would want to quit. And some of them have reduced the number of cigarette smoke.
We believe there are probably other ways as well for the government to take actions, such as a regular moderate tax increase.
I think this is the quote of the century regarding the tobacco industry. We have a battle every year about taxation. So this is what they fight. So to hear them say that no, don't do the graphic warnings, but put up the tax, I think it's almost the last proof we need that graphic warnings and big graphic warnings are going to work.
The 6 images and accompanying words that make up the graphic warnings on tobacco packaging have never been changed since being introduced in 2007. The number would double to 12 under the government's plan.
The deterring effect has obviously diminished. It's been 8 years now.
Adding fresh warnings is not as easy as just ordering them up.
The director of the Department of Health, she doesn't have the authority to change these labels.
It has to be an amendment to the law because the warnings are right in the legislation. Legislators will be asked to approve different warnings, and that's more than a formality.
Why would anybody in LegCo care about that?
I don't know. But whenever we have any kind of amendments, proposing any kind of amendments, there seems to be a lot of voices. And it's a good question.
One voice belongs to Joseph Lee, the Health Services Functional Constituency legislator. In a newspaper piece he wrote in July, Lee said the government has yet to provide conclusive research that bigger warning labels
can really put off smokers and encourage them to quit smoking.
Further, he said the government was wrong not to consult the industry before trying to move ahead with changes. But there's a reason for that.
They are not allowed to. We are party to an international convention, the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. Article 5.3, it says that the tobacco industry must not be involved or consulted in terms of government policy. It's very clear.
Most cigar smokers don't inhale. The smoke can still cause cancers, though, around the mouth and in the larynx, esophagus, and lungs.
I think cigars also pose the same health risks as cigarette smoking.
Cigar smoking is addictive. One big cigar is loaded with nicotine. So there are tobacco warnings on cigar boxes.
And a 50% health warning is, in our view, quite adequate. You can see it, you can read it, but it still allows the consumer to see the other information he needs in order to assure himself that it is an authentic cigar.
What happens with an 85% health warning?
Well, obviously the health warning then becomes much bigger in proportion to the box, and it means that there are certain part of the information on the box that will no longer be visible for the consumer.
That includes the Cuban government warranty seal. A hologram just above that is a security feature. And in the top right corner, the word Habanos on another seal called the denomination of origin, which says these cigars are from Cuba. There's also the Pacific cigar seal. The company wants cigar packaging to be exempt from an 85% warning, like it was in Thailand.
They remained at 50% for cigars.
Is there any consideration to treating cigar packages differently?
Well, we hear the arguments from people who are selling cigars. As far as the public health matter is concerned, I think we want people who smoke cigarette or who smoke cigar to quit because it is really for the good of the health of the entire public.
Well, thank you for watching our show. It will be re-aired on Monday and Saturday, as well as on tvbeat.com. Until next time, from the Pearl Report team, good night, good luck, and good health.